Welcome, everybody, to week 6 of Living the Good Life. In case you're just joining us, we're on a journey through the teaching of Jesus, commonly referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. It gets that title simply because of what we read from the very beginning in Matthew chapter 5 that says, when he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him, and then he began to teach them. And what follows are 8 statements about the kinds of people who are welcomed into the kingdom of Jesus. Today we're focusing on verse 8, which says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." When we moved to Camden County, we loaded all our stuff into a U-Haul, drove it down on a Saturday, came to church on a Sunday morning, and then unpacked that afternoon. And I was eager to return that vehicle as soon as possible Monday morning. I had no idea there were so many places in our community that you could return the U-Haul, so I picked the one that would receive it the earliest at 8 a.m. I pulled into the parking lot at 7:55 a.m. with no sign of any activity on the premises. So at 8 a.m. I tried the front door and it was locked. But there was clearly a sign hanging there posting the hours 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I waited a few more minutes and still nothing, so I eventually called the phone number on the front door and it went straight to voicemail. When no one had arrived by 8:15, I decided to call directly to U-Haul. By 8:30, I had finally received a live person who walked me through my options, and finally, after 45 minutes of waiting without any person in sight, I decided to just leave the vehicle in the parking lot and come back later to do any of the final paperwork and make sure it was received and returned correctly. So after leaving, I called back to the store and left a message on voicemail with my name and my number to call me when someone arrived so I could come over there and finish this return. About 10 a.m., I got a call to come by anytime, and when I arrived, just slightly irritated about the inconvenience of the morning, I decided to kindly point out that I showed up at 8 a.m. because everything I could find on the websites, Google, their own sign hanging on the front door indicated they were indeed open at 8 a.m. To which the lady responded, "We do open at 8 a.m., but we weren't here at 8 a.m. We get here when we get here." I said as nicely as I could, "Yeah, I know that because I was here," hoping we could enjoy the irony of it all together. She didn't see it. You've probably had a similar experience. Like, we hate when someone advertises one thing and actually fails to deliver. What's posted on the outside of the establishment should give us an accurate expectation of what we'll find on the inside. Now, of course, once I start to apply that to myself, it's a difficult standard to keep. It's a really small and maybe a silly example to point out what I think Jesus is getting at in today's passage. That most of us spend a lot of time working on our signage for everyone to see, and Jesus comes right in to look at what the true policies are. So Jesus, standing on the hillside, is looking at people whose predominant attitude of the day was to be more concerned with what people thought of you than who you were. To be more concerned with how you appeared than with what was really true. And honestly, that sounds a lot like where we live today. Here's the verse, "Blessed are the pure in heart." The heart's used throughout the scriptures to be the entire control center for a person. The heart is the house, essentially, for all of your desires and affections, your reasoning, your conscience, and your intentions. To be pure means to be clean, to be unmixed, to be unstained. Pure can also mean that something is the same through and through. Jesus is saying you're blessed, or you have the favor of God on you. You're living the good life when what people see on the outside is exactly what's true on the inside. Now, as soon as Jesus spoke these words, all kinds of bells, buzzers, whistles, thoughts were sounding for those people on the hillside. Because if any one word captured what the state of religion was all about in the culture, it was purity. You wanted to be clean and pure and not infected with the wrong things. But the Pharisees and other religious leaders defined it almost completely in terms of things people could see and not necessarily what was in the heart. It all became a matter of appearances and keeping rules. There were hundreds of these rules about what foods were acceptable, how to properly wash your hands, what kinds of people you could and couldn't eat with. And at one point, Jesus confronts people with these words to describe what they were really doing. He says, on the outside, you seem righteous to people, but inside you're full of hypocrisy. Clean up the inside so that the outside may also be clean. In other words, the outside of your life looks good, but the inside is a complete disaster. Now, we tend to make the outside of our life look good through our actions or even inactions. And we're going to see this later on in the sermon as Jesus says things like, I know you're not out there murdering people. It looks like you've got this one under control, but at the heart of murder is anger. How are you doing with that? Or what about adultery or sexual temptations? Okay, it's clear to everyone looking at you that you've avoided that, but don't get too comfortable thinking you've got it down. Inside, where it really counts, your heart is full of lust. We also have a tendency to give off appearances that can give a false impression that we're good, righteous, holy, and pure people, at the same time completely neglecting what's in our heart. I'm not even going to dive into the image management that we work tirelessly for on social media. How about some real spiritual examples? As a fifth grade boy growing up in church, my Sunday school teacher announced one week that anyone who achieved a certain level of points would get to go to a free pizza party. It was a reward system for things like attendance, bringing your Bible to class, memorizing verses, and the big points were for Bible reading, like the fastest way to earn big points. My friends and I discovered that Psalm 117 is the shortest chapter in the Bible, only 2 verses. And each Sunday before class, after neglecting reading all week, we would go into the bathroom and read it as many times as we could. Then we could show up to class and report how much of the Bible we had read that week to the amazement of our teacher. It was all about appearances, trying to make ourselves look good. Essentially, I was living a divided life between what you see outside and what was really true inside, because I wanted pizza. I'm sure there was someone who didn't make the pizza party because they didn't read as many chapters of the Bible, but they were actually truly genuine, changed, consistent through and through. They were pure in heart. Actions and appearances can be deceiving. We all know the temptation to live a double life, to be one thing on the outside, but someone entirely different on the inside. Which is why Jesus goes straight to the core issue of what it means to be right with God. It's a matter of your heart, and that your heart be pure. You're living the good life when you stop worrying about all the work that you're doing to make the outside of your life look good and all the effort you're expending to convince people you're something different than you are. When the inside and the outside match, you are pure in heart and you're blessed. And Jesus says, you will see God. Every week in our opening video, we are using the Message translation of the Bible. And this week, I really like how it's worded here. It says, you're blessed when you get your inside world put right. Then you can see God in the outside world. Sure, I think it means you'll see God someday, but I think it means you'll see God every day, in this life and all around you. Instead of a divided life, you have a singleness of heart. You see God in everything because everything is about Him. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God.